Hey guys, gonna do a video on NKGN and APM. Uh, Second time I'm recording this because my first recording crashed. So I have two trades. I have NKGN, and I actually did APM for the first one. Um, Start with APM actually. Um, I ended up covering a little bit more of this by end of day, but APM was really interesting because. Um, on Monday we had OCEA, and on Tuesday we had AISP in terms of midday runners. And I told my Discord this about, you should always pay attention when you start to see big shifts in the market, because midday runners is something that we haven't seen a whole lot. Back in December and January, we're actually getting huge gapping percentages, but we weren't getting a lot of midday runners. We were getting a lot of like pre-market and market open pushes, but we're getting big fades without a whole lot of backside play, and especially without new highs being made midday. But now this week, um, the theme is definitely big midday pushes. Especially after some of these stocks are having 30, 40% pullbacks, and then massive squeezes midday. So APM was pretty interesting. That I thought this could have been a possible short out of the unhalt. Maybe you do like an unhalt and then you stall it under high day and then pull it. The main reason I didn't do that, and we'll see on the book, is they started stacking a lot of bids down here, and I was afraid that given the quantity of bid stacks, um, we actually pull it up. Given the sheer quantity that was under there, I was very afraid to short this. You can see it here, right? And this is where the 1 minute 50 was, right? You could see, and there's bids. I didn't hit the $6 short up here. A lot of times I do like shorting into these second pushes that don't have a lot of bid follow up. But I was looking down here and I'm like, oh man, they have a lot of bids stacked um, down lower. And I was afraid that they were, absorbing the bids over here to push it higher. But especially, like, I was just hesitant. I actually didn't even have shares, which actually kind of helped me not take this trade. Um, and you could see how many bid stacks they had on the 1 minute 50 down here. And it led to this massive, massive rotation. And I was lucky to get out of it. Or I was lucky to not be in it, I should say. And then it just went straight up. I mean, this is classic strength, guys. Big, consistent volume. 1 minute 9, 1 minute 20, straight up only. There's not a single short, especially once it broke pre market high today. There's nothing here. There's nothing here to short. So we had, a big push, and then it pretty much just got walked down with no obvious liquidity pattern. So I wasn't in it. So I was like, all right, well, you know, um, just like this NKGN fade, sometimes if I just don't see a liquidity pattern like we see over here, then I won't take it. But this was pretty interesting because, you know, sometimes after these big parabolics, the odds of of some type of backside liquidity move is increases, right? Because stocks will go up forever. And midday, what often happens is you get anywhere from like 1 hour to sometimes like 2, 3, 4 hours of very low volume soak that is range bound. It's like range bound low volume soak that, and you can see where the levels are painted, right? You have 13 and 14 here. So this one was a little tricky because there were two possible ranges it could have went for. But I thought the support level was pretty clear, right? Um, so the reason I picked 13 was because 13 over here was quite painted. And on the book, we'll see the little trick that they do where, the way a lot of these backside liquidity swipes work is that they have a big ask that they're looking to fill, right? And right here, we could see that 13, we had this reclaim, right, over here. You could see 13 get stacked really heavy and then right before the initiation, they stacked it even more. And then what they do is often without it's even better if there's no bid support. So there's no major bid, there's bidders down here, but there's no bidders really from 12 to 13. Is they fill the ask and then they yoink it, right? And when I shorted this, I thought I was shorting it in the 13s, but I actually got executed sub 13. But you can actually kind of see there's like a 14 ask here and a 13 ask here. I just thought the 13 ask was so thick that they wouldn't have the liquidity to push it to 14. So I was just like, okay, maybe they just swipe 13 and pull it. That's exactly what happened. And then I ended up covering on the bot, because sometimes if you look at charts like JFIN from 2021, a lot of times what they do is they just swipe ranges and they keep trading, and it's still kind of doing it. It's still kind of just like trading in the same range. Who knows what they're gonna do it in the after hours? It's actually kind of curling right now. But yeah, that's classic backside swipe, right? Especially that multi-hour low volume soak, which we can see here, right? You can see how 13 here is painted multiple hours of low volume soaking. You build up the liquidity. They fill their ass that they want to fill, and then they pull it, and that's the classic little chart. And then we have NKGN. If I knew how to type. This one was interesting because this is actually, especially in a weaker market, a super bearish pattern. There's something else I taught about in my Discord called the 7 a.m. pop. You get these 4 a.m., 5 a.m. parabolics, and you get these 7 a.m. pushes, because 7 a.m. always has big volume coming in it because there's more market maker participation. And then they pop it usually above some backside levels. Closer to high day, the better, and then they pull it, and it worked pretty well. It went from 1.7s to 1.1s. But this type of chart really shows you the counterintuitiveness of low floats and strong stocks, where the stock that ends up going on the biggest intraday move is the stock that opened the lowest, right? It had one of the weakest openings, went on a huge move. But I took one short. I'll show you. Show you the chart. Took one short here. And then I covered some here, and then I got stopped out on the rest. So we'll show you why. That, first of all, I almost never short out of uphalts. So if stock uphalts and then unhalts, I never short out of the unhalt, right? In like 99.9% of situations. Usually the volatility is really insane. And again, one of the very counterintuitive things about low floats is a lot of times if an unhalt has a massive stuff candle, it's a short trap. It's very common for, a stock to uphalt, give this massive, super bearish looking stuff candle, and then they just rip it. It catches like the 1 minute 9, usually just the 1 minute 9. It's so strong that the 1 minute 9 catches up. And sometimes it's a 1 minute 20, but the 1 minute 9 out of the unhalt is very strong. It catches it and it just shoves it straight back up, and everyone gets squeezed, right? So super common. So I saw this squeeze and I'm like, oh cool, yeah, it's gonna go straight up. Like, I'm glad I avoided the short. I'm just watching it. And then this stuff. So now we got a double stuff candle. It's like, well, A, I wasn't expecting to end, and B, I'm definitely not shorting down here in the 2.3s and 2.4s because, now, high days, 20, 15% away. And then it starts squeezing again. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe it's a double stuff candle. And I thought this was super bullish. I'm like, okay, this should just go straight up. But then two things happen. Not only does it start stalling, but the book starts to turn really bearish on this. Really bearish on this. So we can actually see here that here's like the third. So here's the uphaul. Here's that first stuff candle, second stuff candle, and now it's going to the third push. and they start stacking the ask really heavy right at high day, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. It pulls back, and I'm like, well, the volatility's still kind of insane. I didn't take any shorts over here. I kind of wanted it to maybe settle down a bit and get a little closer to these asks and let me get a better read. And then it starts to bounce, it starts to stuff again. And this is when it became really interesting because not only do we have an ask up here, we have new asks start to follow this down. And this is actually when I started shorting it, was when we had this mini bounce towards the new ask. Those started getting stuffed and it started showing weakness. And I thought, okay, let me take a short there because, like I said, I thought I thought this candle should just squeeze straight up. And the fact that it's struggling this hard, and we have new ask coming in, makes me think that it's not going to push, it's going to fake people out, and it's going to roll over. So I shorted it on this candle, and I covered some near the $2 swipe because a lot of bids starting in stacked, and it was really walked down. You could see it getting walked down, massively walked down into a bunch of bids. And I was afraid, given the type of crazy moves we got this week, that, maybe, I was 20% in the money, and you never know what's going to happen. Let me take a little bit off. And then I was looking for a 1 minute 200 cover, never got it. It rotated straight back up. And, originally I was just risking this 260 ask right here because that's like the major ask you see in the book. And man, you could see it on the chart. They just ripped this thing, dude. They ripped this thing, and there's nothing I could do. There was a 50-cent green candle, and I got stopped out. And then yeah, sadly on the backside, isn't it funny? Like you get this like 1 liquidity swipe, 2 liquidity, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get like 7 liquidity swipes into a zero bounce, 70% down only fade. You know what I mean? Just classic low float stuff, man. It's frustrating sometimes. Not kidding. At least APM had painted levels on the backside that I could short into, and I could have a thesis on why it might work. But NKGN, it was obviously stocks don't go up forever, and it kept doing these like little high day swipes. But it's hard to get a really good read without wider risk, and I just didn't want to do that. So yeah, my one short, I did get one curve off, so I made like a tiny bit in APM. And then I had a bunch of small longs that made money, but not a lot. And I had a few longs that initially worked, got to my first profit level, then I had like 2 or 3 longs like that today where it's like got on my first profit level, took a little bit off, came back down to my entry, and I just got out. And that's about it. So those are the 2 trades today that I'll talk about. And is there anything else? I mean, a ton of stuff happened today. Yeah, I longed this here. High day clear out with the 1 minute 50 walk down. There was a huge hidden seller at 0.88. This was a single order. 0.88 hidden seller here. Actually, this guy wasn't even hidden. He got filled like 80,000 shares on the ask, and then there was a hidden seller here, and then it faded. And then just kind of chopped around. But yeah, and then I forgot what every time Meds pops up on my scan, I never trade it. So anyways, those are the 2 trades. Yeah, a lot of midday strength and a lot of crazy reclaims. You were getting, you could look at this. You could see here's a 1 minute 50 walk down, massive squeeze, another walk down, massive squeeze. Just that's what we're seeing this week. So anyways, that's it for today. You guys have a good one, and see you tomorrow.